It's 6:07. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Roll call, Catherine.
Julia Ott.
Here.
Linda Baker.
Oh, here.
Kevin Hamilton.
Here.
Geraldine Harmilio.
Here.
Aaron Nowak.
Here.
Ann Rypel.
Here.
Dan Ryan.
Here.
Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic that stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first tonight, I have one approved or one change to the agenda before we approve it tonight. Number 7, Margot Trammell was supposed to come in and present on the CPR kits that are going to be donated to the high school, and she had to cancel for tonight. So I'm going to look to move number 7 into our October meeting. So that'll be the proposed change on the agenda. Any comments or questions on the agenda for tonight?
Aaron, I have one question.
Yes.
When we initially added 2 public comment areas, did we need to take a vote on that?
I don't remember.
Well, all I'm wondering is if we change the format of our agenda, do we need to vote on that?
I don't believe so. Ron and I set the agenda every week, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments or questions? There being none, I need a motion to approve.
So moved. Support.
Support.
Roll call, Catherine.
Kevin Hamilton.
Yes.
Geraldine Harmilio.
Yes.
Ann Rypel.
Yes.
Dan Ryan.
Yes.
Julia Ott.
Yes.
Linda Baker.
Yes.
Aaron Nowak.
Yes. Tonight in the superintendent's report, Mr. Moog is going to recognize our recent retirees. So Mr. Moog, I will turn it over to you.
Great. And I have to thank Catherine Blakely for creating this slideshow. So she is going to cast it here in a minute. Thanks, Catherine. So our first retiree recognition is Phil Anderson, Three Rivers High School, 25 years of service. Susan Buckhold, Park Elementary, 19 years of service. Scott Grace, Barrows Education Center, 25 years of service. Roger Gunnick, Three Rivers Middle School, 20 years of service. Joyce Gilstrom, Andrews Elementary, 21 years of service. Belinda Jewell, Park Elementary, 26 years of service. And Cynthia McKnight, Park Elementary, 25 years of service. On behalf of Three Rivers Community Schools, we want to thank all of them for their years of service and congratulations on their retirement. And with that, I'd like to take a moment to just share the first day of school. Ann Rypel and I went out to Norton Elementary this morning, and we were engaged in sanitizing hands of kids coming in, all grades, kindergarten through 5th grade. And then we proceeded to check out the other schools. The first day of school format and how kids came into the school and how parents dropped off kids and the bus arrivals really went well. In fact, beyond the expectation that all staff had. So even in the rain, we were able to get kids inside, both those kids who parents did the screening and for those kids who needed screening. So really a positive start to the school year. We got a chance to get in some classrooms and see kids. All of them were really happy to be back in the classroom, and really was just a positive feeling all the way around. So just a huge thank you to our entire staff at all the schools on how they welcome back kids today, to Brian Leonard and his crew for getting the buildings ready, Blair in the business office to make sure we had everything we needed, and the teachers and staff were just doing a great job in preparing to get our kids into school and back to school. So thank you to all of you.
Good, thanks, Ron. And yeah, lots of good stuff coming out of the public today about how the first day of school went. So to all of the administrators, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna, we have a little change in the way that we're running public comment because of the need to change from our regular, the platform that we had been using for our Zoom meetings that were limiting public participation to the first 250. So what we're going to be doing for the next bit until we get back to being able to meet face-to-face in session is we're going to be calling for public comment prior to the board meetings. Public will have a chance to submit their comments and then they'll be read during the live stream. And again, this is just the procedure until we can get back to face-to-face meetings with the public being involved in our board meetings. So we have 2 public comments tonight. The first one is from Kayla Childers. And Kayla's comment is, with Lincoln Learning, most won't be fixed until the 14th. Do we have to print off the workbooks and buy all the supplies on the supply lists? Is the students that classes are assigned or courses that are messed up this week going to get marked absent? With starting late, shouldn't most of this stuff be worked out, answered, and known to the school parents, teachers, staff, and all that's involved? So Ron, the nice thing about these public comment cards is that they will give you contact information. So I'll put you in charge of contacting her and getting those questions answered. Okay, thank you. Second public comment tonight is from Adriana, sorry if I butcher these names, Carice. Comment is, why are we not able to have the option of school packets and what we did in spring? Lincoln Learning has proved to be very difficult, and we thought we were still getting assigned teachers and Google Classrooms. So again, Ron, I'll forward you the public comment contact information, and if you could touch base with those 2 people, that would be greatly appreciated. Okay, thank you. And that is all the public comment that we have for tonight. Starting our work session up first tonight, Nick Bryant, our technology coordinator, is going to fill us in on internet filtering. Nick, the floor is yours. Yes, yep. Hey, Nick. Sorry, just to bring to your attention, apparently your audio is not transmitting to the live stream. Okay.
Okay, I think I have it fixed on my end. However, it's gonna, because of the delay in YouTube, it's gonna be a couple seconds here before we know. So I'll pause right now and wait for the stream to catch up, and then I'll restart. Okay. So I got confirmation that now everyone can hear me. I apologize for that. So we have, we accept what's called E-rate funding for our internet services here at Three Rivers Community Schools. And based on E-rate funding, we are obligated to announce that we do filter, and we filter at different capacities depending on the age range of the student in the buildings. So our elementary school students would be filtered slightly different than our middle school and high school students. The items that we filter would be your very objectionable material regarding alcohol, drugs, pornography, and we don't allow any VPN into the system. A lot of different security like malware, NetTools, proxies, those are all blocked. So we have a very rigorous, two very rigorous filtering systems that we have in place. One is called Palo Alto and the other is called Lightspeed. What Lightspeed does is it blocks, or it filters, it filters our students who are using a Chromebook. And what Palo Alto does is it filters any Windows device on our network. This could be, you know, a teacher desktop or in the computer labs. They're all being filtered. And we have, I'm just going to look real quick. We have over 122 different filtering rules. Now that does not count, that's not saying we only filter 122 websites. What it does is it, Palo Alto and Lightspeed says, okay, here are all the categories of websites that are out there, and they mark them. So, and again, new websites pop up every day, but Palo Alto and Lightspeed are continuously changing their filtering process. So they're adding new sites literally by the minute. So every website will have a category. And like I said, we have 122 different categories that we being Lightspeed and Palo Alto will filter.
Good, thank you. Any comments or questions for Nick? All right, very good. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks.
Up next, Brian Leonard, Director of Facilities and Operations, is going to give us a facilities update. Mr. Leonard, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I got multiple images of myself on my screen, so I'm not quite sure what's going on that end. So just tonight's update is going to be kind of a timeline format, because I just wanted to share amongst all the other things that we've been engaged with, and that have been kind of the primary reporting points related to preparations for the opening of the buildings in the new year, and all the work being done throughout the course of the summer to get set up for that. Some of this has kind of fallen to the wayside, if you will, as far as from a reporting perspective. So just to give you some context, I'm going to reach back until Wednesday, July 22nd. So this is going back a couple weeks. That was, I believe, since our last board update, kind of where we picked up at that point in time. And on that date, Superintendent Moog, myself, and GMB representatives met to go through each of the design plans to date in what's called a schematic design page turn review. It's a very intentional review of each and every page of the schematic design work done thus far, prior to it being formally submitted to the construction management team to start putting price allocations against it. So it's part of that process of balancing the work that we've done, the planning that we've done, as well as appropriate budgeting out of the available bond funds. On the 29th, July 29th, myself, Brian Clark, Matt Blue, and GMB engineers spent that day, along with quite a bit of time the day before and day after in meetings, virtual meetings, or completing exploratory meetings with the following building management service providers. This is in conjunction with the work we're doing with GMB as we look to upgrading the systems for the district-wide through the bond work. We met with Controlled Solutions, ControlNet, Grand Valley Automation, Trane, and Honeywell. The primary intention was to gain a clear understanding of their current and existing systems and how they're utilizing what we call open protocol networking. We dove into things about learning about their most recent projects with BACnet systems. We talked a lot about and actually asked them to give us examples of some of their most recent installed projects that showed their open protocol capability, web-based communication, color graphics packages, control system architecture, and how the various points are accessed and changed. Here in Three Rivers, we are very engaged in that process. It's not something that we're hands-off with. We, even so much so with the current 1999 Summit system we're utilizing. So moving forward, we wanted to make sure that all the levels within our team that deal with our building management systems would have the functionality that's necessary or be able to increase it to the point that it should be with any type of upgrade work that we do moving forward. We also dove into those companies' existing parts and labor warranties for entire control systems, which is something that becomes important when you're looking to spend this type of money, as well as some of the IT communication systems and protocols, because this will become much more of an engagement with the IT side of the house. So Nick and his team will be working with us on that. So we wanted to make sure we had some understanding there. The other piece we dove into quite a bit was an evaluation of their two-tier control system approach, because here in Three Rivers, that may be the most financially beneficial method for us to move forward with, depending on what the final decision is and the direction we choose to go. As all that gets kind of digested and we percolate through it, for lack of a better way to put it, we'll come back to the board after meeting with the superintendent with a formal recommendation on what we think the best direction to go is in that particular avenue. Moving into August 20th, Thursday, August 20th, I invited down one of our partners who the district has been in partnership with for a number of years, Confesco Fire Protection LLC. And we've worked quite a bit in past within the district on our service protocols, but we actually dove into a different type of an audit investigation, looking at critically reviewing our current systems in our facilities. Many were updated back 2006, 2008 period. And as we've been working through some of the issues on an annual basis through our inspection process, as well as our test processes, it's becoming more and more complex, difficult, if you will, to actually get parts to repair some of these systems, because a number of them are proprietary in nature as well as obsolete. GMB has done a very similar in parallel type analysis. So this was a cross-check. To be very candid, that was my intent. We brought that information together and found that there's a direct connection or a direct correlation between the recommendations or suggested recommendations from Confesco as well as those from GMB, which of course validates for me what I wanted to know and makes me very happy. That being said, we have a detailed plan as far as which of the systems in the schools are going to be able to accommodate the planned upgrades that are scheduled to be done and or are in need of replacement based on the fact that they're obsolete systems and the only type of parts you can get are off of eBay, and you hope they work when you get them. In regards or in relation to life safety systems, that's not something that any of us are willing to do. So we'll move forward accordingly there. This information has been passed on also in conjunction with the SD work to the Skillman Corporation. So they're familiar with that. The architectural and engineer and design team up at GMB is up to speed as they were independently. So this is just, again, a validation of that from the team that actually has hands-on each one of these systems and has for a number of years. Good news, just a little side note, throughout this process and the infrastructure reviews that we've been completing over the course of the last month, based on the analysis of the historical electrical peak demand loads from AEP at the high school, it has been validated that our electrical main distribution service size for that building will accommodate any and all of the changes that we're planning as we move forward through the 3 series. So that I was very happy to hear. We thought that, but it needed to be verified. So that's been verified. August 25th, Tuesday, August 25th, we completed our final walkthrough of the buildings to verify the door audit and secure entry access control points in all district buildings. This was leveraging information we compiled about a year ago with the principals in conjunction with some of their teams as we went through their buildings from an operational perspective and evaluated how they plan to use their buildings, what they're thinking of doing, what are the best ways to support their function and operation, both with staff as well as with students. So we went through that process, also did a structural review as we move into analyzing the envelopes of each one of the facilities and the needs that need to be addressed in that respect with the bond work. Of course, it's been some time since the last time we performed an audit of that nature, so we wanted to definitely evaluate it so that we had at the ready the information we need if there is funding available to leverage it to that advantage. On the 28th, Friday the 28th, GMB mechanical engineers completed a on-site audit of all the facilities that related to the electrical life safety systems, building management control system infrastructures at the high school, Ruth Hoppen Elementary, Norton Elementary, Andrews Elementary, and Park Elementary. They were here for pretty much all day that day. Concurrently, Superintendent Moog and myself took another segment of the GMB team, the architectural and interior design specialists, and we met with teams from the high school, Park Elementary, Norton Elementary, Ruth Hoppen Elementary, and Andrews Elementary to review the interior specifications. These, to give you an example, include things, but not limited to, both mobile and built-in furniture, assemblies, paint colors, flooring finishes, lighting needs, lighting preferences, space utilization plans and strategies. And this is the time to be doing that based on the drawings. So we have our structural definitions pretty much all mapped out. So the next piece is, okay, we have a concept, and we've been working on this for months with the different teams at the buildings on how all this is going to work. So then we bring in the next layer of specialists to help us work through the final details or some of the final details. After this, what will transpire is all this information gets taken back on one end. What's happening is the construction management team is going through, they're analyzing it and assigning a cost value to it based on current construction costs, things of that nature. They're evaluating it from a timing function also, starting to really dig into the gory details of that. Meanwhile, GMB has already established some what we call proposed estimated costs based on their expertise. The Skillman cost will be even more detailed than what the proposed estimated costs are. It will break out much more in-depth information for us as we go through and make final selections. This also then stages us with the information necessary to develop the next phase, which is it's going to be the final design reviews, where we'll actually have three-dimensional representations, two-dimensional, three-dimensional representations, where the teams will be able to see within reason what this will actually look like, how it'll come together, and whatnot for yet one final review to make sure everything's in place. Through the process, just on a personal note, this has really been going quite well. I'm very, very pleased with the work the teams have done. I'm extremely, extremely impressed with the building principals and the teams that they selected from each one of their buildings and their engagement. It's a difficult, long process. It can seem kind of like, well, why are we going over this again? At times, but each time we do it, it's like peeling an onion. You find out a little bit more. Hey, is this really going to work? Hey, is this really going to serve the need? And even in this last review that we've done, there were some things that were identified that, wow, we didn't know we could do that, or we could tweak this, and this will improve our overall operations within our particular facility or in this particular area that we're trying to achieve. All this, of course, reflects out in budget. And so, as we save a little bit here by doing one thing, we're able to allocate a little bit more so over here out of the allotted funding so that we can actually accomplish the greatest return on what we're doing as we move forward with these efforts. So from my humble opinion, I'm very, very impressed with all the teams and the hard work and the time and their willingness to engage and stay engaged and take true ownership of what's transpiring within their facilities and what will be transpiring in the very near future. So that's kind of in a nutshell from the bond work side.
All right, thank you, Brian. Are there any questions for Brian on his presentation tonight? Very good. Mr. Moog, did you have anything to add?
I just echoes Brian's comment. This inclusive process, the teams at all the buildings, Matt Stouffer and his team with the weight room have done just a really great job with the architects in coming up with a design that's meeting their needs. You're going to find out at each building there's some unique features that transpired. And probably the most exciting is for Hoppin Elementary to actually get an office when we're all done with this. They do a great job with the space they have right now, but to see and know they're going to get a real, office compared to the other schools is really exciting.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, up next, financial update. Blair Brindley will give us an update on that. Blair, go ahead.
Sure. The Finance Committee met last week and we discussed a few things. The first one being that the blend for this upcoming fiscal year, 2021, is going to be different than in years past. So we'll still use how we've always had funding based off of 90% of this fall and 10% of last spring. However, we'll take that 2021 blend and then we'll add that, we'll take 75% of that and then take 25% of last year's blend and add those two together. So the state of Michigan did that just because they were anticipating some decreases. Excuse me, I said that backwards. It's going to be 25% of this fall, 75% of last fall. So the state of Michigan is anticipating that a lot of students or some students have left the state. And so they're trying to normalize some of the funding while still using our typical blend. So based off of our current numbers, we're looking at maybe around 2,640 FTE. So we'll see where that goes. We don't have FTE numbers for this fall just yet. We just have headcount numbers. So we're still zeroing in on all of that. We also talked about Lincoln Learning. And so we will pay for Lincoln Learning based on student schedules being partial students. So if a student, for some reason, is a partial student, maybe they come and do band in person or something of that nature, then we'll only pay for the partial amount that they're with Lincoln Learning. So that was good news. And we're paying one semester at a time, which is how we're also running the staffing for it. So we've talked about the staffing for Lincoln Learning. We have mentors and we have tutors. And so the mentors are those that are reaching out twice a week, making that content and then contact, and then we also have tutors that are available if our mentors aren't maybe specific in the content areas. So we have onboarded all of that, and then we also started to talk about some changes between what we adapted for 2021 and what it's now starting to look like. We're still really kind of wrapping our arms around all the expense changes, but we do have a few revenue changes that have happened. So we were awarded the Part 1 of CARES Act, which gave us $511,000. And so we've already started to put that to good use. We potentially have an opportunity to be awarded CARES Act Part 2, which would be just over $100,000. However, we won't know if we for sure will get that until after all of the districts with 75% or more free and reduced are served. So once those higher risk districts are served, then they'll come back and offer us. But if it's offered to us, it would be at maximum just around $100,000. We were awarded GEARS funding from the governor, which is $156,000. So we're working on knowing what it is that we can spend that on. That's going to be a common theme. So we were announced a lot of funding and then not yet necessarily able to get advice yet on how we can use it. So GEARS, we know that 156 will be coming to us. We're just not sure what we'll use it for or how we'll be able to use it. On our August state aid, we had 2 new categoricals pop up, and so that was exciting but also confusing. We had 11P and 11D. And so 11P is the coronavirus relief funds, and that was $929,000, which basically gave us $350 per student. However, right below it was Section 11D, which was SAF, so state aid revenue source, revenue shortfall reduction in the amount of $464,000 negative. So that was about $175 per student that was taken back. So basically, from the $350 that was given and $175 that was taken, we wound up with another $175. But again, we're waiting on guidance as to how that can be used and what that can go towards. And then we budgeted, when we adopted our budget, we budgeted for a decrease of $650 per student from the state. And we're thinking that that might only be a decrease of $400 at this point. So kind of all of those categories going together. Like I said, we do have a running list of expenses that have changed, staffing that we've had to change because of COVID. So a lot of additional things that we have already done. And so we'll be looking to take into account any of these additional grant funding sources towards any expenses that we already have, and then service from there based on whatever is left over, whatever we can meet the need with. One other positive note, we found out last week, in the middle of the week, that food service is now going to be 100% free for now up until potentially December 31st. That's when it's scheduled, but it could be shorter than that based on the funding that's available from the federal government. So it'll be 100% free for any student up until December 31st is the plan. So we turned on a dime and we made that happen. And so our kids will now have the free breakfast and free lunch if they choose to partake. So Linda's group in food service has done a great job getting that around very quickly. So we were waiting on some guidance. We got that announced. And so we do ask that families, if they can, respond to our survey each week so that we can know how many meals to make, just because we have a lot of different student sections now. We have in-person, we have virtual group A, B. So we're just asking parents if they can fill that survey out so we know how much food to make so we don't have not enough or have too much. And that's it.
Well, thank you, Blair. Any comments or questions for Blair?
Hey, Blair, did the notification to the parents regarding the free meals get delivered in any other way besides email?
It was also posted on Facebook, went out through email and school messenger, I believe.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. And last tonight for our work session, discussion regarding the extended COVID learning plan presented by Mrs. Nash, our curriculum director. Go ahead, Nikki.
Okay, so as you know, we have the roadmap, the Three Rivers Community Schools roadmap that is like the 56, 57 page document. This document here that we have to submit to the ISD by September 15th, and then we have to get it approved through the ISD, and then we have to post it to our website by October 1st. It has some new assurances on it, but it also is, most of it is a lot of the information that's already outlined in our roadmap. So we just needed to add and make sure that that information was on there. The new assurances on the COVID-19 extended plan is we have to have an ed goal, an educational goal. It outlines where we are. We have to have a benchmark test, and we are going to use the NWEA for 1st through 12th grade, and then a DIBELS assessment through Acadian's testing or program that is for our K students to show that they have growth and literacy foundation. So part of this goal is that we have to report it monthly to the board of how we're working towards our goal across the board K-12. We have to post it at our results by the middle of October because we haven't tested yet, obviously, because we just started today. So we have kind of a generic outline of what our goal is, which I'll tell you that in just a second. But then we have to have our winter testing, which has to be done and posted by February 1st. And then we have to have our end of the year testing done, which is our spring testing. And that has to be posted by the completion of the school year. So there's 3 times a year that we have to post the scores. And then monthly, we have to report out about our progress towards the goals. So like I said, we'll use NWEA, and our goal is to show growth for all students because we have to make sure that we include subgroups across the board in reading and language development, and then in math. So reading and language development is our ELA section, and then obviously math is math. And then kindergarten, we're just going to focus on the literacy foundations, and we have to show growth in our DIBELS testing. So again, that's a fall, winter, and spring test. we have to, another part of the assurances is that we have to work with the health department in the event that we have a closure due to COVID cases. So based on that partnership with the health department, we have to determine what phase we're in. If we're in phase 1, 2, or 3, which would be all remote instruction. If we're in 4, 5, or 6, what kind of face-to-face instruction we have, and then how we will continue that same delivery of instruction depending on the mode of instruction that we're in when we close, if you follow that. So let's say right now we're in hybrid face-to-face middle school, high school. Let's say we have an outbreak at the middle school. We have to go to remote instruction. We have that plan in place in our roadmap already that says what we would do in remote instruction. So it wouldn't be like we had in the spring where we had that couple of weeks and try to put a plan together. We've already put that plan into our roadmap. So they just needed to know that we definitely have that transition and are able to transition as quick as we can into that mode of instruction. And then again, like if we were in phase 4 and we go to phase 5 and we're full face-to-face, we, if with all of our students, we just have to show that we can transition in that as well. So that's the biggest pieces of the insurances. All the other parts are in the roadmap, which talks about grading, instruction. We are still keeping the same standards that we're always teaching, whether it's full face-to-face or if we're in remote instruction. And then the other piece is that through our, one thing that was changed and on our August 21st was our mentors through our virtual program have to be certified teachers. Up until before that, we could use a paraprofessional to be supported by a certified teacher, but that's not the case anymore. So we're making sure that those people are in place to work with our virtual option students, which are working in Lincoln Learning. And then with that now, we have to have, which we had to have, was a two-way interaction each week. And a week is from Wednesday to Tuesday. But within that, we have to report to the board every month what our interaction rate is with our students of virtual learning. So that's part of the pupil accounting, the membership, all of that piece together so that we are holding ourselves accountable to make sure that we're keeping in touch with our virtual students as well as our face-to-face students. So those are the biggest things that are outlined in the extended COVID-19 plan. It's not 57 pages, it's 12 pages. The other pieces Nancy's going to talk about, but I don't know if you want to ask questions of me first and then Nancy's, because Nancy is going to talk about the special ed and the social and emotional section.
Any questions for Nikki first?
Nikki, I've got just a couple.
Yeah.
And Ryan may have already told you this, but at our finance meeting, we were talking a little bit about all the students as part of Michigan's return plan, any student that has remote learning. So all of our students, 6 through 12.
Yep.
We need to have an EDP in place for them so that we know that they're getting what they need to get. So do all of our students now have an educational development plan in place?
It's so through the changes through the state, through the pandemic learning, it's just middle school and high school students that need the EDP. And right. So part of the curriculum in 7th grade is to develop EDP. So that's where their starts. So they have a class with it's Career Cruising or Zello. So they create their EDP. And then in 8th and 9th, 10th and 11th to 12th, it carries through with the counseling and they can visit that and to outline what they need for classes. So that's part of our curriculum.
All right, so what are we doing with the 6th graders then?
So the 6th graders, they will start with the like the basic introduction to what Zello will look like. So they don't have to develop the EDP until 7th grade.
Okay, I'll talk to you offline on it.
Okay.
And the other thing is that your group was meeting to determine, because we were only meeting face-to-face 2 days a week, your group was meeting to determine the curriculum, the basic curriculum that had to be met. And I just wondered if that is in like a master book, or what, where that exists as far as what is going to be instructed.
So each of the grades or departments have curriculum maps that we follow. So just because we're in remote instruction, we don't get rid of anything necessarily that we weren't teaching that's essential as it is. So instruction still goes on the same, even though we only have them face-to-face for 2 days. They're not getting just 2 days of instruction and then going home and having to do homework in those 2 days of instruction. That continues. It's like I've talked about the flipped classroom. So it's almost like a learning lab, more so when they come into the classroom, of supporting what they're getting during those 5 days. So we still have the same content we're covering. It's just presented in a little different way throughout the week. So
they're even though they're home Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they're getting new material Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Yeah, it could be a review. Yeah, I mean, it will really depend on each class. Some could be a review, some could be new material. On Wednesdays, when they have that face-to-face instruction, it could be some support of what they are getting in class. So it's just not like they're getting the new 2 days of a new instruction and then having to go 3 days off on their own. So,
okay.
And I know that the middle school and the high school have really worked hard with their teachers, and we've got a lesson plan format in place, and our remote instruction that we had over the summer really helped lay that out and understanding what that looks like in a remote instruction setting.
Okay, thanks, Nikki.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Lubesky.
Okay, thank you. What I want to talk about a little bit tonight was the latter part of our extended learning plan, dealing with the special education. And our teachers have been working very hard to write contingency learning plans to make sure that our students with disabilities still have access to the general education curriculum, and their accommodations and modifications as outlined in their IEPs are still followed. Case managers will still be working very closely with the students on their caseloads, making sure that they do have the access, the accommodations, and whatever else is required. Teachers have spent the last couple of weeks writing the contingency learning plans in collaboration with colleagues and parents, making sure that each individual student is supported and they have what they need, both in the virtual environments and remote learning, to make sure that their needs are accommodated for. Teachers are also looking at how they can continue to support students and reviewing the plans regularly. The contingency learning plans are not like one and done. They're a fluid plan that can be updated at any point in time based on the students' needs and what they require for their learning. So we're very pleased with how those have turned out. And again, teachers have worked very hard to get those done before school has started. The other piece that I wanted to mention briefly was our social emotional learning. And we did have professional development for social emotional learning before school started. And in that development, teachers and staff members met Holly Lego, who was our community mental health specialist. And she is based primarily in the elementary buildings, but she is available to all staff, as well as students at all levels, for mental health support, counseling, somebody to talk to. And teachers are also provided with self-care and regulation, and lots of resources about how they can continue to support students in SEL manners. There is going to be, as you already know, a universal screener that's put into place, which will occur within the first 30 days of school starting. The screener is pretty neat because for the elementary level, there are pictures where students can circle how they're feeling. It touches on anxiety, depression, abuse, neglect, trauma, domestic violence, safety, how the student is feeling. And then that will kind of give us a read as to where the students are, and then we can go to the next level and provide more support given the needs of those students, how they self-report on the screener. Finally, for the SEL, there is going to be, as I said, continued training and professional development for teachers, for staff members, and resources available to community members as well in that area to make sure that the mental health and well-being of everybody is taken care of. These times have been tough. There's been a lot of change, a lot of different things happening. So we want to make sure that folks are supported.
Very good. Thank you, Nancy. Any
You're welcome.
comments or questions for Nancy?
I have one comment. Nancy, unsolicited, I had a parent tell me that they really appreciate how very hard you're working. We know that we're down some runs and you're working very hard to make sure that all of those students are being taken care of. And I just want you to know that it is appreciated and it is noticed.
Thank you, Ann.
All right, thank you, Nancy. Okay. So to round out the meeting tonight, board calendar, September 21st will be our regular meeting. October 5th will be our work session, followed by our October 19th regular meeting. Moving on to board member comment. Is there any board member comment tonight?
Yeah, I'd just like to compliment everybody who has done such a phenomenal job figuring all this stuff out. I mean, somebody said to me today, I mentioned Brian Leonard, like we had done a little tour of a couple of the schools, and I'm so impressed. I mean, every single question that anybody had, he either had already addressed it, he had a plan for it, or it was totally out of his control. And, you know, that's so good to know. But anyway, this person said, how did we ever get Brian Leonard anyway? I said, I don't know, but we better keep him. And really the same with Nikki. I mean, starting on probably 9:30 on March 12th, I'm sure she was thinking of how this is all going to work, thinking it was only going to be 2 or 3 weeks, and it went on and on and on. You know, same with Nancy, same with Blair. I mean, all these different facets of stuff to make everything work. All of them, I mean, really, I think are so dedicated to making their part of the puzzle as perfect as possible. So I think we should all be very proud of the amount of work and dedication and ownership that these people have all taken.
Yep, I agree. Thank you, Linda. Any other board member comment tonight?
Well, I have a few if nobody else does. Hey, Ron, just a question for you. When you follow up with those 2 Lincoln Learning questions, could you give us a quick shout out about how that was resolved?
Sure will. Yep.
Thank you. And then also, can you give us all of the individual school enrollment totals when you give us the Lincoln Learning totals?
I shared that with you in a spreadsheet document earlier this afternoon.
Well, I didn't find the totals for each.
Oh, okay. I will. Yeah. Okay. I'll put the totals on there.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Brian, I'm sorry I didn't ask you. Are you still on? Okay, I'll send Brian an email.
Yeah, no, Ann, I'm still here. Sorry, I had to get to the *6 to unmute.
No problem. Hey, sorry I didn't ask you earlier, but do we know when that website's going to be up for Skillman yet?
You know, I don't. I can call and find out on that and report back to you.
All right, thanks. And then, hang on. Got that one. I'm just checking off here. Okay, so then today I just wanted to comment on the visits to the schools today. After our finance meeting, I was telling Ron that, you know, if anybody needed any help, I'm happy to volunteer. So I tagged along with him today. And, you know, all the schools, you could tell how hard all the principals and the teachers have been working to prepare for today. Kids were all excited, you know, everything. They did a phenomenal job. They did a great job. Most of the students, I think Ron and I only passed out one mask, and I don't know what they had on the other side, but the feedback from the principals as we as we went around afterwards was that the kids had the masks, they knew the rules, and there wasn't any belly aching about it. So that was all real positive things. And then they've even did with the forms that the parents have had to sign, either they're going to do the screening at home or the screening was being done by the school personnel. And we even had one school that is down to just getting one of those forms back. So that's just a lot of work, a lot of tracking down. And so kudos to all principals and all their staffs, because even trying to get those forms in so that they could screen the kids, the telephone calls, just a lot of work has gone into that. So my last point was my tours that I did last week, which seemed to cause a little bit of ruckus for whatever reason. I have absolutely no idea. After I made some calls to the elementary schools that we weren't visiting as a complete board, I made calls to elementary schools and asked to set up an appointment before school started, number one, knowing I've already been tested and negative for COVID-19, and also that I've been wearing my mask and adhering to all the social distancing rules. So why another board member would call and tell me that I was out of line making those tours, or that I would have to, quote, suffer any consequences, I didn't feel any of that was necessary. But what I did find during that tour is that I was not there to represent the board. Nobody from the board asked me to go, but because we've had at least one town hall meeting, and because we have had parents that have talked about discrepancies between the schools prior to school starting, I wanted to check for myself so that I knew what I was talking about. And all the schools are very welcoming, and anything that was a little thing I've already talked to Brian about, doesn't need to be brought up. But one thing that we do want to make sure that we're doing, and that is the PTOs may be stronger in some schools than they are in others, but especially right now, I just want to make sure that if there's something that the schools need, that we don't count on the PTOs in order to have to fill that need. And the one that comes to my mind, and Brian, your team has done a good job making sure, because we can't share water fountains and stuff like that. But it did bring up the question about being able to fill water bottles. And, we all know that trying to fill a water bottle through a drinking fountain is the most ideal thing. So I think one of the schools does have a water bottle fill station. I'd like us to consider the ability to get water bottle fill stations in all of the schools, so that there's not a discrepancy there. And if there's other things, I know the principals will be real good about making sure that their students have what they need. So if there are things that we're overlooking unintentionally, please let us know, because it's a hard situation when everything's great. So if there's anything little that we can do to help, by all means, please let us know. And that's all I've got.
So Anne, I'd like to address some of your comments, since obviously I was the board member that called to alert you that the staff in the buildings didn't appreciate a single board member calling to schedule walkthroughs without alerting either facilities director or the superintendent, and it wasn't from the Board of Education. You stated yourself you didn't go in as a member of the board, but the truth of it is we were not allowing parents to come into our buildings. We were not allowing community members to come into our buildings. So I'm not so sure why you thought you could get special privilege to come in and tour the buildings not as a board member. You used some really dramatic words such as ruckus and consequences. I strictly asked you to please keep in mind that you are not just a community member, negative COVID test or not, that you are a member of the Board of Education, and your actions towards staff in this district need to reflect that role. As you said before you rudely hung up on me, thank you for the education on board etiquette, and I hope you really meant that. And I hope moving forward, you will remember that you are a Board of Education member and you represent the board no matter what you do, whether it's one or as a group of 7.
Well, that's fine, Aaron. Brian had been asked about doing a tour, and we were only given 2 buildings to tour. And since the whole board was asked or was invited to tour, I thought that it was within my realm. And then even, let's say it, even if it is as a board member, I wasn't going to inspect anything. I was going to make sure that when I was asked a question, I was ready to answer it. So again, there's nothing wrong with a board member going through the building, especially when there are no students in the building, and especially when there's nothing that's going to be interrupted by the staff. So, or with the staff.
There is not, but we can't expect office members to field calls from 7 members of the Board of Education. You took that upon yourself to do that without alerting Mr. Moog and without alerting Mr. Leonard. The email that you sent to Mr. Leonard was weeks prior saying that you wanted to tour the buildings, and he did what he felt was appropriate, which was touring the high school and Hopin. So that's all I have to really say about that. Is there any other board member comments tonight?
Yeah, I have a question about that because I'm trying to get an understanding. So was the concern about the COVID-19 as far as the tour? I mean, I'm trying to figure this out. The reason why I say that is because I took a tour of all the elementary schools last year, and all the principals thanked me for being there. They thanked me for being there because they said they don't see board members come through. And there was no issues, and I actually reported that to the board about the cool things I saw at the school. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, what is the real issue?
Kevin, if you're waiting for me, I don't know what the real issue was. You know, I know that we've had board members hang around the schools any multiple of times, and that's with students in the building, and that's without calling the superintendent before they go. That's without calling the principals before they show up. You know, it's happened all the time. I felt like I was actually doing a courtesy by calling, hey, and saying, hey, I'm coming out. What time works out best for you? So, truthfully, I think it was quite frankly, I think it was because it was me that was going.
Well, I think we've been instructed, though, in the past, from what I understand, is to alert the building principal and the superintendent or the board president that we want to do something like that, which doesn't mean that it's wrong to do that, but I think it is a courtesy. And the other thing is that it may tend to put some folks maybe feeling a little bit I don't know, on edge. That's not the right word, I guess. But anyway, I went to all the elementary schools also during open house. And I thought that would be a good time to go. Everybody else is there. I got to see a few classrooms, talk to a couple of teachers that I knew, and I went there for open house. And that's available. And I think that would be a nice thing for, you know, anyone on the board, or obviously all the parents and whoever, grandparents, should go to those things. But even though you don't intend to disrupt anything, I think probably it still does. And I would have to agree with Aaron. I mean, your intentions, I'm sure, were of the best, but there is probably, is anybody going to say to you, I wish you wouldn't have come? Of course not. They're going to say, thank you very much for coming. So, I think it was that way. If you just kind of look back a little bit, it's sort of like being, I don't know, your supervisor all of a sudden coming in and standing at your desk for 20 minutes, at your job. You would thank them for coming, I suppose, but then you would say, why, like what's going on? They might say that or they might not. I mean, I have no idea, but I think we were instructed that there is some protocol for arranging some visits to minimize disruption, to let people know, what's going on, especially Ron or Aaron, and maybe a suggestion that another time would be better or another setting would be better. I think that's it. I don't think it was,
Well,
you shouldn't take it personally.
I'm not going to ask another board member. If I should have called Ron ahead of time, that's fine, but I'm not going to ask another board member. And we didn't have open houses, so.
Okay, well, I think it's in our protocol to do that. That's within our board stuff that we got when we became board members.
All right, any other public comment tonight or board member comment tonight?
I just want to echo the comments made by Linda and those of Ann regarding the job that everyone has done making this successful start to the school year possible, from Ron on down, central office staff, building administrators, teachers, and support staff. You've done just a phenomenal job getting us off to this positive start. And Ron, just a comment, I think it was a nice touch the way you recognized the retirees tonight. So it's greatly appreciated. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, there's no other board member comment. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, Catherine.
Geraldine Harmilio,
Yes.
Ann Riopel,
Yes.
Dan Ryan,
Yes.
Julia Ah,
Yes.
Linda Baker,
Yes.
Kevin Hamilton.